My name is Edward Shin. In support of our topic on interaction, I would like to introduce the article What is Interaction by Hornbeck and Olesverd. Interaction is involved with subjects like HCI and theories like reality-based interaction. Yet the term seems underdefined. To address this issue, the paper reviews many theories and concepts of interaction and utilizes them for use in HCI rather than pursue a correct answer. There are three benefits to this endeavor. First, there would be a transition from older concepts to more intelligent ones. Second, we would learn how one's understanding of interaction affects their work by affecting their idea of a good interaction. And third, we would also learn how interaction bonds aspects of HCI together. Because of the lack of interaction definitions from literature, books, and discussions are reviewed and searched for missing elements. There are some folk notions of interaction mentioned in certain contexts. Despite textbooks mentioning the word interaction, however, there's no solid meaning or content about it. Most of these definitions are usually mentioned on a theoretical or modular standpoint without any ties to more concrete context. There are also ongoing discussions of interaction and interactivity. Some key questions raised by Winograd include the following. First, what do we mean by human-computer interaction? And second, Webster defines interaction as mutual or reciprocal action or influence. Clearly, humans act on computers and computers influence humans. But how? In what dimensions? There were also a few deeper thoughts that delve into interactions, like interaction as a system, tool, dialogue partner, and media, and visualizations of interaction. Sometimes interactivity is mentioned instead of interaction. These psychological processes were often used to evaluate interaction models. However, interactivity is treated more as an aspect of interfaces and has little relation to humans. With observation, there are criticisms regarding interactivity. Experts found it hard to determine the boundaries separating two subjects of interaction. It was also mentioned that interaction design also involves world building, not just in the relationship between people and technology. So what is missing? Well, for one, there is enough clarity in the perspective and definition. Also, discussions frequently focus mainly on just one view of interaction. And finally, the purpose of a view on interaction is not made clear for most. Most developed definitions of interaction are merged in well-known HCI theories. So this paper dives into 7 interaction concepts and extracts these definitions. As a dialogue, interaction is a cycle of communication acts channeled through input and output from the machine perspective, or perception and action from the human perspective. Much of this perspective depends on the comprehension of abilities of computers to understand human acts and of humans to understand the computers. Interaction as a transmission of information states that interaction is a transmission of information between the computer and the user. Much of this concept centers on the exchange of information over a constrained channel. For interaction as a tool use, interaction is a tool to manipulate and act in the world. The computer ultimately serves to not only influence events within, but also affect the users using it. Interaction as optimal behavior states that interaction is a joint computer-user behavior where a user pursues some goal or utility to the best of his or her capability within constraints posed by the UI environment and the task. Basically, this idea of interaction is born from a combination of rewards, costs, actions, and constraints. Interaction as embodied action defines interaction as acting and being in situations of a material and social world. In contrast to the interaction as tool use concept, a more third person experience, this concept offers a first person view by making use of embodiment and someone's idea of situatedness. Interaction as experience states that interaction is an ongoing stream of expectations, feelings, and memories. This concept further emphasizes how we use technology and understand our experiences with the UI. Finally, while not as prevalent in HCI as the other concepts, there is interaction as a control. In this concept, interaction is an interactive minimization of error against some reference. According to the control theory, interaction revolves around a system used for changing for a certain reference and providing updates based on feedback. So what work do concepts do? Well, as we've seen in the previous section, interaction concepts differ in the way boundaries of computer and human are established. From this, we can make several observations. Humans view interaction differently. Some focus on certain aspects of interaction than others. Some interactions concepts establish boundaries on human and computers as a whole system, since interaction bridges the two together. Views sometimes differ depending on the timescales. The phenomena from each interaction concept help problem solving, which in turn allow concepts to raise awareness of certain features, vocabulary, logic of interaction to utilize. Concepts can be deemed transferable in the broad sense of interaction study. The interaction concepts also propose events when interaction is successful. Identifying a good interaction in interaction concepts implies a design goal for experts. For example, tool use aims for usefulness. Also, like many other fields, there is no right or wrong perspective in interaction because multiple viewpoints help understand the burgeoning field. Knowing many concepts can also increase understanding, and if there is a standstill in progress while utilizing one concept, another one can help move research forward. In this section, the article attempts to interpret the human-computer relationship. According to Bunge, causal determination is one type of relationship used in modern scientific explanation. He uses the term determination to mean the different ways two subjects converge and affect each other. Bunge believes that HCI revolves around the determination that both the computer and the human have on events that unfold in computer use. Those events must be considered for computers and users as a whole. All concepts use a teleological determination, which explains that human motivation suggests an interaction goal. Our intentions can also be translated into other utilities. Mechanical determination is an explanation of a consequence by the antecedent. For example, a user's input on something which is processed and then affects the device's state. The device provides a response that the user receives. Statistical determination is attributed to the end results of interaction as being jointly determined, stochastically by some efficient causes and mutual forces. The key is not to accurately explain how those causes and forces affect each other, but rather to observe how they affect the previous event of interaction. Lastly, structural determination is defined as the explanation of parts by the whole. As an example, information foraging theory proposes that specific exploration behavior occurs as a function of the space's arrangement. Analyzing interaction by their concepts contrasts in the scope and system for causal reasoning, which brings up three constraints in interaction concepts. First, while all concepts subscribe to the theological reasoning, most say little about how intentions are formed or affected by interaction. Also, there is no interaction concept that brings an explanation on what a computer or computing means in interaction. And finally, there is difficulty in finding a good proposition about the relationship between humans and computers. As of recent, there have been no endeavor to use HCI concepts and theories to inform design, so the paper will look into how interaction concepts will perform that function. Design agnostic constructs doesn't support non-existent reasoning for connecting interaction conditions to events. Design sensitizing constructs directs people to chances for design conditions, but not how their changes influences interaction. Lastly, design determining constructs make up the class of constructs that bridge design elements to events in interaction in a certain way. The problem for concepts of interaction is that there is no success of finding interaction concepts that involves a good amount of phenomena at the sufficient level required to inform design decisions. The concepts instead are divided into two groups: high determinacy with inadequate scope, and low determinacy with large scope. Overall, interaction should not be considered listings of dimensions of this everyday concept. Ultimately, interaction is the event that concerns two entities that determine each other's behavior over time. In HCI, the entities would be computers and humans. The determination could range from statistical to structural, and causal relationships mainly depend on the user and their intentions, and interaction as a concept can bolster progress in HCI, so further studies are recommended. Because interaction concepts are long-lasting and evidently create a common core, interaction is essentially the core of HCI. In order to form interaction concepts that can inform point studies and point designs, there will be a need to for further studies into more propositions regarding interaction. Hopefully this will bridge theory with design and prepare related experts with the necessary information.
Hello everyone, this is Zhang Shunan. Let me continue our presentation. Another paper we choose is What is Interaction and Are There Different Types? So, from the title, we know the main contents of this paper includes two parts. Firstly is what is interaction, and secondly, different types of interaction. Lastly, I will make a brief conclusion of the whole passage. Part 1. The definition of interaction. Actually, the first member in our team has made a clear introduction of what is interaction. So, in my part, I will focus more on computer-human interaction and design for interaction. The definition will show from the three aspects. Firstly, a design theory view. Secondly, a human-computer interaction view. Lastly, a systems theory view. In design theory view, interaction is a way of framing the relationship between people and objects designed for them. All man-made objects offer the possibility for interaction, and all design activities can be viewed as design for interaction. Also, the same is true not only of objects, but also of spaces, messages, and systems. And then, human-computer interaction view. This is based on feedback loop. In the model of interaction, a person is closely coupled with a dynamic system. So look at the picture here. The circle means information loop running from system through human and go back the system. Lastly, the system theory view. In this part, the author compares computer-human interaction with steam engine interaction. They have some similarities and differences. Both of them are closed information loops, self-regulating systems, and first-owner systems. In the next page, I will give you a further interpretation of what is self-regulating system and what is first-order system. And then the differences. The differences include the role of the person and the nature of the system. Actually, we know the person is inside the computer-human interaction, but the person is outside the steam engine interaction. Besides, the nature of the system, the computer is not characterized in the model of computer-human interaction. Part 2 is different types of interaction. When talking about different types of interactions, the author mentioned some different types of systems first. These systems can be static or dynamic, can be linear or closed loop, or can be first or second order, or can be self-adjusting or learning. The article explains 3 kinds of systems detailed. The first is linear system. This can also be called zero order. So here is input and then just output. But for self-regulating system has a goal. The goal defines a relationship between the system and its environment. A simple self-regulating system cannot adjust its own goal. Its goal can be adjusted only by something outside the system. But for learning system, this is a first self-regulating system inside a second self-regulating system. The second system measures the effect of the first one on the environment and adjusts the first one accordingly. On the way to characterize types of interactions, the author mentions these kinds of systems need to be combined. So in this paper, the author combines 6 pairs systems. They are 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2. Then I will explain these 6 kinds of systems one by one. Firstly is 0, 0 reaction. This interaction called reaction to other system. We can say the output of one linear system provides input for another. The first system pushes the second one. The second system has no choice in its response. In a sense, the 2 linear systems function as one. Secondly, 0, 1 regulating. Regulating a simple system, precise. The output of a linear system provides input for a self-regulating system. Output from a self-regulating system may also be input for a linear system. Thirdly, 0 to learning. Learning how acts affect environment. Just an image, you signal your computer, then it responds. You react. After signaling the computer enough times, you develop a model of how it works. You learn the system, but the system does not learn you. This is learning. Firstly, balancing competing systems. Here is an example about an air conditioner and a heater in the same room. If the air conditioner is set to 75 and the heater is set to 65, then no conflict. But if the air conditioner is set to 65 and the heater is set to 75, each will try to defeat the other. So this type of interaction is balancing competing systems. Fifthly, managing automatic systems. These kinds of systems, just like a computer, runs an application and try to maintain a relationship with its users. For example, in a game, they will increase the difficulties as players' skills increases. This type of interaction is entertaining and maintaining the engagement of a learning system. Last is conversing. Conversing, this type of interaction is like a peer-to-peer conversation in which each system signals to other, perhaps asking questions or just making commands, but there is room for choice on the respondent's part. Part 3, the conclusion. Just as we mentioned before, the contents of this paper includes the definition of interaction and the different types of interaction. So after showing the definition from 3 views, the author puts forward 6 kinds of interaction. This is the whole content of this paper. Thanks for your time and thanks for your listening.
Distinguished professor and dear classmates, how's it going? First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Li Yingcen, and I come from China. This is the first presentation after entering Sangkyangkwang University. Although it was made online, I'm still a little nervous. Hope you could understand. And today I'd like to share with you a paper entitled Human-Computer Interaction Overview on State of the Art. First, I will give you an introduction in 4 parts. First part is about definition and core terminology, and the second part is about HCI systems architecture, and the third part is about existing technologies and recent advances in HCI, and the last part is about applications, especially for multimodal systems. First, let's look at the definition of human-computer interaction and core terminology. As we all know, the concept of HCI was automatically with the emergence of computer, or more generally, machine. And the value of sophisticated machines is based on that humans can use them properly. This also presents some main terms that should be considered in the designing of HCI, that is, functionality and usability. Functionality of a system is defined by the set of actions or services that it provides to its users, and the usability of a system with a certain functionality is a range and degree by which the system can be used efficiently and adequately to accomplish certain goals for certain users. The actual effectiveness of a system is achieved when there is a proper balance between the functionality and usability of a system. Therefore, HCI is sometimes also called as man-machine interaction or interfacing. HCI is a design that should produce a fit between the user, the machine, and the required services in order to achieve a certain performance both in quality and optimality of the services. Next, it is about HCI system architecture. In fact, HCI is generally defined by the number and diversity of inputs and outputs it provides, and the HCI architecture answers to questions about what those inputs and outputs are, and how these inputs and outputs work together. Actually, these inputs and outputs are communication channels that enable users to interact with computer. Each of the different independent single channels is called a modality. A system that uses based on only one modality is called unimodal. And unimodal can be divided into three categories: visual-based, audio-based, and sensor-based. And a system based on the combination of multiple modalities is called multimodal. And multimodal HCI systems do a good job of explaining how these inputs and outputs work together. Currently, in most multimodal systems, the modalities are still treated separately, but similar to human multimodal analysis, an ideal multimodal HCI system is only possible if the input data should be processed in a giant feature space and according to a context-dependent model. Therefore, there is still work to be done. Next, I will introduce you to the emerging technologies and recent advances in HCI. But first, we need to understand that the complexity of the degree of human-machine interaction is sometimes invisible. Therefore, the degree of activity between the user and the machine should be fully considered in the design of HCI. That is three different levels: physical, cognitive, and affective. The physical aspects determine the mechanics of interaction between human and computer, while the cognitive aspects deal with ways that users can understand the system and interact with it. Affective aspects is a relative new issue that tries to make the interaction not only a playable experience for the user, but also tries to affect the user to continue using the machine by changing the attitudes and emotions toward the user. Existing physical technologies for human-computer interaction can be basically classified into three categories. That is, according to the relative human senses for which the devices are designed. That is, visual-based, audio-based, and sensor-based. Visual-based are the most common used kind. Here are some of the main areas of research and examples. The devices that rely on audition are more advanced devices. These devices aim to facilitate the interaction as much as possible and therefore are much more difficult to build. The most difficult and costly devices to build are sensor-based devices. As for the recent advances of research in HCI, that is, intelligent and adaptive interfaces and ubiquitous computing. These interfaces involved all the different levels of user activity mentioned above, that is, physical, cognitive, and affective. Intelligent HCI designs are using intelligence in the making of the interface, and are interfaces that incorporate at least some kind of intelligence in perception from and response to user, such as Siri. And adaptive HCI designs, on the other hand, may not use intelligence in the creation of interfaces, but use it in the way they continue to interact with users, such as Taobao in China. It has the ability to recognize a user and keeps a memory of his searches and purchase, and intelligently search, find, and suggest products on sale that it thinks users might need. But there is still some issue need to be solved. Most non-intelligent HCI design are passive in nature. However, Ultimate intelligent and adaptive interfaces tend to be active interfaces. And the latest research in HCI field is ubiquitous computing, that is UbiComp, the term which often used interchangeably by ambient intelligence and pervasive computing, referred to the ultimate methods of human-computer interaction, that is the deletion of a desktop and embedding of the computer in the environment, so that it becomes invisible to humans while surrounding them everywhere. Hence, the term ambient. And UbiComp has also been named the third wave of computing, that is many computer, one person era. And the figure shows major trends in computing. And the last part, applications of HCI system, especially for multimodal HCI system. Multimodal interfaces can offer a number of advantages over traditional interfaces. For one thing, they can offer a more nature and user-friendly experience. Another is their ability to provide redundancy to accommodate different people and different circumstances. Here are a few other examples of applications of multimodal systems, that is intelligent houses, intelligent offices, driver monitoring, intelligent games, e-coms, multimodal HCI in medicine, and helping people with disability, and so on. The picture shows some of these good applications, a detailed description of which you can find in this paper. In short, human-computer interaction is an important part of system design, and the interaction with intelligent, adaptive, multimodal nature methods will be the direction of research. Thank you. This is all about my presentation, and suggestions and comments are welcomed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all for tuning in. This is my summary to the theme, what is interaction? I made a summary of the following article, an overview of a decade of journal publications about culture and human-computer interaction. It was written by Torkil Clemense and Kerstin Roose. So, first of all, I wanted to say that I'm not sure if I completely picked the right article for this question, but I think it's very interesting nevertheless. So what is it about? The paper analyzes the concepts of interaction and usability in the context of culture. So it's a quantitative literature studies. And this is important since the economy has become more globalized. There is a need for international user requirements and culture-specific or local knowledge on the use of interaction science. So HCI researchers are interested in intercultural differences relevant for HCI, of course. The framework of this research was built on the main interest of the researchers in the field of HCI regarding the state of art in the field of culture and HCI. The study is focused on journal papers since the authors think they're more relevant. It gives an overview of journal papers from the past 10 years in the field of culture and HCI. And the following elements of these papers are analyzed. So the characteristics, the current practices, the interpretations, the models which are used in the papers, and finally the data side of the research. Also, they give some inspirations on how to publish these papers. So there's three main motivations for the authors to conduct the study. First, they wanted to see if there's an increase in the number of papers and to see if there's a trend. They also wanted to see if there are different methods being used in the context of intercultural studies. And third, they wanted to see if the overview of the models and the approaches being used by in the papers. They got They proposed 10 hypotheses. They acquired these hypotheses by holding multiple workshop meetings, and they went brainstorming, and this is what came out. So I'll go through them quickly. The number of publications has increased in the past 5 years. There's more quantitative studies than qualitative studies. Most will rely on foreign students. Hofstede's cultural dimension is the only cultural model used. There's more empirical studies than conceptual or theoretical ones. Most papers focus on Asia. There are more cross-cultural studies than cultural studies. The tests are localized. Most research uses countries as cultural variables, and all relevant HCI journals have articles regarding HCI and culture. So they had some criteria to select these papers. So the method of this study categorizes and analyzes HCI papers regarding culture and usability from the past 10 years. They were published in major HCI journals. The authors used meta-analysis to analyze the papers. And so they had these 4 criteria, which are here on the screen. So first, they should be cross-cultural or cultural studies with regards to HCI. They are related to methodologies and the processes for designing interfaces. They should be full journal papers, and it doesn't matter if they're empirical or theoretical. So then they collected information of these papers, which they selected. And this was the information they collected on the paper. So it was the type of study, which techniques did they use in the study, the study design method or development process, the research approach, the interface design issues with regards to culture, the approach to culture, the countries of focus or the country of focus in the study. Is it localized or not? Or how did they do that? And by localized, it means if it's a study conducted in China, is it in Chinese or is it in English, for example? Which models or model did they use for the study? And then finally, the number of participants. Did they use students or not? And of course, what is the paper about? So then we go to the results. So the results, they try to answer the hypotheses which we saw before. So for the first one, the number of publications has increased in the last 5 years. That's actually true. There's a small but continuous stream of relevant HCI papers, which has increased in the recent 10 years, but not by much. There's more quantitative studies than qualitative. That's true. And on average, the number of participants in the studies was higher than it would have been expected. So that's also interesting. They mostly rely on foreign students. That makes sense. That's a financial aspect because it costs a lot of money to send researchers abroad. They have to fly out there, accommodation, everything. And so it's very easy to use foreign students to, for example, fill in questionnaires, for example. The Hofstede's cultural dimension is the only cultural model used. It's not true. Out of the 27 studies here, 9 used Hofstede, 6 used other models, and 12 used no models at all. There are more empirical studies than conceptual or theoretical papers. That's true, actually. There were 4 theoretical papers. There were 19 experiment papers and 4 field study papers. Most papers focus on Asia. That's not true, actually. 33% of the studies were on China, 33% on the US, and 67% of the studies were actually conducted in countries with English as the main language, so not in Asia. There are more cross-cultural studies than cultural studies. Yeah, that's correct. The tests are localized. So this is not true, and it has the same reason as that they mostly rely on foreign students and cost considerations. Often the researchers are proficient in English and probably not in the target language, kind of. So they will conduct it in English because it's cheaper. And most of the countries used countries as cultural variables in the research. That's also correct. Finally, all relevant HCI journals have articles regarding HCI and culture. That's not true, actually. So the journal IWC seems to be the journal with the most articles on HCI and culture by a mile, actually, which is interesting, surprising, because you would say most journals nowadays would have these articles about this topic. All right, so to conclude, we can say that Hofstede is the dominating model of culture, but it's not the only one being used, since a lot of papers didn't even have a model of culture, they just used the word culture. Most of the studies were actually quantitative studies with more than 20 participants, and most of the studies, a major consideration in the choice of participants was if they could speak English, and this is of course, like I said before, to do with cost considerations. So that's it. I hope you found it interesting, and yeah, thank you very much.
Finally, it's time for my last paper. Yeah. The paper is entitled Improving Online Courses. What's interaction and why use it? This is a very well-structured paper, so just relax and follow me. This paper consists of 5 parts, which are introduction, what is interaction and why use it in online courses, what makes a great online course, how can we improve interaction in online courses, conclusion. First, the author introduced the background, that is, the development trend of online courses. Schools are increasingly turning to online technologies to enhance their students' learning experience. And this experience may take the form of fully online courses, usually offered at a distance, or online modules and materials to supplement classes instruction. Then, the author tells the reasons for taking an online course. Most of the teachers who have offered online courses for several years have found students often take these courses not because they are at a distance, but because they prefer the opportunity to work on coursework without coming to campus. And at any time, they prefer day or night, weekdays or weekend. So what kind of audience does the online course have? Online K-12 programs could be designed for dropouts, students with young children, students who have failed courses or been expelled, advanced placement students, or those looking to supplement their school's classes. But programs for this audience would necessarily differ in their design. What are the types of online courses available so far? The first one is fully web-based courses. The second one is hybrid courses, which include both web and classroom sessions. The third one is campus courses with web supplements. The fourth is standalone materials and software for learning. At the end of the introduction, the author expresses the research objectives. The focus of this article is on fully online distance courses with the idea that techniques and strategies have proven of value in these courses can be implemented by instructors who wish to use online learning in other ways. Our topic is what is interaction? How does interaction relate to online courses? Interaction in online courses has been defined in many ways. First of all, interaction is considered to be communication among the participants in the course, especially the students and the instructor. Communication is what separates true online learning from web-based tutorials, and communication is the key to interaction. The author gives three types of the interaction in online courses, namely learners and instructors, learners and learners, learners and content. What is the effect of interaction on online courses? The author gives three answers. The first is interaction has been identified as a key factor in the success of online courses. It can lead to increased student achievement. The second is the next standards for teachers require applying technology to such areas as teaching, learning, and curriculum, planning and designing learning environments and experience, and social, ethical, legal, and human issues. Third is interaction in distance courses can enhance student satisfaction, motivation, and retention. And these two are powerful reasons to increase the level and the type of interaction in online instruction. What makes a great online course? Based on the literature review, the author puts forward 7 suggestions like good content, good planning, or good organization, good interaction. Course planning and organization relies on a teacher's skills in designing instruction. A good distance course requires a balance of good presentation. Student factors influence how successful they are in online courses. Many of the students' attitude and personality characteristics can be influenced by a teacher or by an online program. So, since interaction plays such a big role in online courses, what are the ways to enhance interaction? The author divides online courses into 4 stages and improves interaction on the whole by imposing different types of interaction in different stages. The 4 stages are before the course that begins, during the course. Third is assess student learning and collect data on an ongoing basis. The fourth is at the end of course and beyond. Before the course begins, initially the course must be planned and organized from scratch or converted for online delivery. The course content should be completely planned out ahead of time, while considering what you might need to do to adapt content as the course progresses. Developed and post all or almost all of the course content before the course begins. Develop an online syllabus that is very detailed and also accessible in short, clear sections, so it's easy for students to know what is hide. Select what tools and features of the online system you will use, or select a system if your organization does not support one. Based on the student learning goals and outcomes, develop the course activities with a focus on fostering meaningful and engaging interaction. Once the course is developed, there are several more things to help students prepare for the course the week or so before school begins. During the course, if possible, conduct an orientation for students, either face-to-face or online, or to help them get started. Throughout the course, instructor interactions must support and encourage students, motivate them, and provide feedback. Since the Since the more skilled students are more with the tools of the course, the more successful they may be. These activities should introduce them to the skills and provide them lots of relatively stress-free practice. The instructor is always responsible for what goes on in the course and often has to be a troubleshooter, especially during the early stages. Too many technical problems can lead students to drop the course. If you plan to rely on considerable group work, consider as the course progresses. Incorporating more icebreakers and other types of activities that will enable students to get to know each other even better. So they trust, communicate, share, and enjoy each other, as well as learn how to work together. The author gave 6 methods to improve the communication effect, which are file transfers, email, asynchronous discussion, asynchronous chats, teleconference, instant messaging. Assess student learning and collect data on an ongoing basis. The first is as the course proceeds. Assess student learning on an ongoing basis using multiple methods. The second is the first time or two that teachers teach the course. Conduct a formative evaluation. That is collect data to help you improve all aspects of the course. The final stage is at the end of the course and beyond. The first method is assess student learning, and then use a survey to collect students' perceptions of their online learning experience. Finally, the author makes a summary. What makes a great online teacher? Interaction is the key, providing lots of informative feedback, engaging learners actively, keeping them motivated, helping them interact with each other, and supporting them to develop critical thinking skills and reflection are all elements of an effective online teacher. A successful online course is a mix of a good content, good planning, organization, and good interaction. Yeah, that's the end of my speech. Thank you.
Okay, so well, thank you for being here, guys. Let's start a discussion. And I thought we could begin with my paper. So it's the paper on HCI and culture. And like I said in my video, I don't think I really chose the right paper because it doesn't really answer like what is interaction, but I think it's still quite interesting. So you want to ask anything about it? No? So you guys are interaction students, right? Have you done anything with this topic before? The topic HCI and culture?
No. How about
No.
Edward?
No? I can't say I have for the most part yeah, for the most part I discuss mainly about the technicalities and the psychological backgrounds of interaction, and but to hear about the cultural aspects of it, I think it's pretty. I think it does raise a few things about what it is. Like I think in a way it sort of gives the interaction a style that that could be applied when, especially when it comes to interaction with technology.
Yeah. Are you not from Korea, Edward?
I'm Korean, but I was raised in America.
Okay, so do you feel like interaction design is different between here and there?
If you're talking about culture, in a cultural standpoint, I would think so.
All right. Okay, cool. So maybe we can move on to another paper then.
Mm,
Okay,
okay,
Edward,
let me,
maybe
let
your
me, let me.
paper. Do you have anything you want to ask us?
Actually,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not. I don't want to talk about my paper, but I'm very interested in the Li Yingchen's paper.
Okay.
Titled HCI Overview on State of Art.
Yeah.
Actually, because this paper mentioned a very important concept, calm technology. Calm technology in the study of the latest progress in the field of HCI, because some scholars say we may be working today with a quiet technology, contrary to the truth. We are bombarded with countless messages trying to grab our attention and occupy our time by phones, by news, service, email, television, blah, 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 blah. The original intention of the technology is to provide convenience for human beings, but it makes everyone entangled by technology. Yeah, of course, there are already some very cool, very beautiful examples of calm technology, like airports, which allow users to connect and disconnect without turning on the Bluetooth settings of the phone. And with 5G, with AI, calm technology will become more and more integrated into our lives in the future, I think.
Yeah. All right. That's cool. So what is a good example of something which is like completely state of the art in the world of interaction design now? Because I'm not an interaction design student.
Yeah.
I do my master's in artificial intelligence, so
Yeah.
we do some stuff with interaction, but not that much actually.
Actually, it's an ambiguous concept in our department, because especially me and Edward and Susan belongs to Kim Jong-hyun, Professor Kim's lab, but Kim Jong-hyun belongs to the HCI department, but our our research direction not belongs to the HCI. It's another direction, belongs to another lab.
Yeah, cool. So maybe we can talk a bit about Edward, about your paper.
Sure, that's fine.
Cool.
Before anyone talks, I'd like to talk about my paper with a thought of my own.
Yeah.
If you don't remember everything about it, there's one thing that kind of interested me about what is the interaction, which happens to be the title of my article. It mentioned 3 blind spots within the 7 concepts that were introduced, like interaction as a dialogue, as a tool, as a form of control. One of them stated that there's no definite proposition about the relationship between humans and computers. So when someone mentions a computer, that they usually define it as a device with a screen, keyboard, and a mouse. But they could also be specifying something like a smartphone or a game console, as they come with their own unique interactions. For determining the meaning of interaction in HCI, I think it's also I thought it would also be important to specify what exactly a computer is. Not only for the sake of human and computer relationships, but also for defining interaction. At least in the HCI department.
I guess you could say that interaction, if you're talking about HCI, could be anything from what we're doing now, working on a laptop, to, I don't know, using a vending machine, right? In the broadest sense of the word.
Technically, yes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's quite interesting. All right. So, any questions for Edward? No. All right. We could go on to maybe Zhang, your paper. I think we have about 4 more minutes left. Yeah, maybe you can ask us, because we're not the inputting that much, so maybe you can ask us something about your paper.
Oh, here I want to share something about Xiaopeng's paper.
Sure.
The paper of mine and the paper of Edward. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. The paper of mine and the paper of Edward have given us a brief introduction of what is interaction and different types of interaction. And so the paper of Xiaopeng to focus on the application of interaction in our maybe in our daily life. Actually, this concept can be applied in all kinds of fields, like something education. So we are some online education and we interaction from the online platforms, and something about maybe medicine and so on. My interest is about the interaction on the online platforms. So this paper is what I want to talk. The interaction between teacher and the students, and even the students and the students, is wildly common, since especially recently due to the COVID-19. So maybe more ways need to be put forward to solve the problems of online interaction, especially to increase the frequency of students' interaction and the students and teachers' interaction to improve the efficiency of online courses. Yeah, this is what I want to share. Thanks.
All right. Cool.
There's another.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
No, nothing. You keep on.
Just another thing I'd like to add to Shunan's article. It kind of intrigues me on the topic of interaction, because to me it kind of brings a question that while we're using the technology, we're also communicating with students and instructors. So you could say a technology is serving as the middleman, or the bridge between our interactions. So I kind of question like if this indirect approach to technology can count as our interacting with technology. In my attempt to answer it, I decided to look back into the 7 concepts within my article. So according to the concept of tools, interaction it can serve as a tool that manipulates and acts in a virtual world. At first, I dismissed this perspective as I didn't really believe there's really much world building going on in the online courses, at least in a significant way. But I decided to revise that thought, because thinking back, there are students who like, for example, like 2 of you are doing right now, are changing the backgrounds to something more comfortable, and probably just to maintain some privacy. You're free to correct me if I'm wrong. And also, when you think about it, the content is meant to teach us. So in a sense, it kind of simulates the idea that we're still in a classroom. And one other concept I'd like to bring up is that there is interaction as transmission of information. This form of interaction requires 2 parties, a sender and a receiver, which would be the students and the teachers in the case of online courses.
Not to interrupt too much, but we're about out of time, so I think we should slowly wrap it up. Sorry.
Okay. That's fine.
I have some comments about Shunan's paper. I think his paper point an interesting view that interaction is varied. So it just seems like the interactions in social, politics, even biology systems, there are a lot of interactions in our daily life, even the environment. So I think maybe because the machine is created to better survive for human, and the most natural interaction is human being ourselves. So I think we need to find idea from human being to find more possibilities of interaction, so that to make better forms of communicating. And I also have some critique about Xiaopeng's paper. And because in nowadays, a lot of people are criticizing online education. And they think, I think maybe it is because the online education hasn't existed long enough to flourish. But I think online courses are the same as the offline courses, especially in interaction methods, because it's just, I think it's also similar to offline courses because it's just added media between the learners and instructors. We live in the era of digital, so we will gradually suitable to this kind of method. And I think another key elements in addition to the efforts of instructor is the cultivation of students' learning ability and self-control ability. That's all about my opinion.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, I think we should wrap it up then, because we're already over the 10 minutes. But yeah, thank you guys for the discussion. All right.